Boruto transformed Momoshiki into a chakra fruit and obtained the true power of the Otsutsuki. Or in other words, what if, in order to obtain the true power of the Otsutsuki and deceive Momoshiki, Boruto used an alternative method commonly used by the Otsutsuki race? Yeah, I know this might sound wild and unreasonable, but let me finish this until the end. First and foremost, I don't think I need to explain in detail how each Otsutsuki race obtained their true power, or simply evolved to reach the absolute point, because surely you already understand and know, right? So, based on the scenario where Boruto's story has a plot that is opposite or reversed from Naruto's story, this is the basis for why I thought of creating a theory that you will definitely think is crazy. But yeah, that's how it is. Starting from a concept or story about the lives of Boruto and Naruto, especially where they have a monster vessel with strengths and advantages, we must admit that Momoshiki should be stronger than Kurama. Because, besides the fact that Momoshiki is not a monster without desires and such, I'm sure we all agree that Momoshiki's existence is superior to Kurama's, right? But wait, this actually has something to do with this theory. Simply put, we already know that the concepts of Naruto and Boruto are different, especially with regard to the monsters or entities that exist within the main characters' bodies. If Kurama and Naruto end up as friends, family, or what we can interpret as best friends, I actually think that Boruto will end up in the opposite situation with Momoshiki. And again, all of this is based on the storylines of Naruto and Boruto themselves, which are clearly opposite or reversed. And we also know that Koji has revealed that Boruto is a cunning person. Koji said this after Boruto did something that, in my opinion, was taking advantage of some information and acting without involving Koji. From this, we can also conclude that Boruto will become cunning in order to realize his idealism according to what he wants. And that is the natural cunning nature of Momoshiki himself. But you need to underline that at this point, I don't expect or assume that Boruto and Momoshiki have united, because before Momoshiki extracted all the karma data into Boruto's body to save his life after Kawaki killed him, Boruto always had the same principle, which was based on his idealism and desire. In other words, Boruto would do anything, even act dishonestly to prevent his friends from dying. So in conclusion, Boruto and Momoshiki are essentially cunning. However, they differ in context and purpose. Then, at this point, we will start discussing something controversial. With Boruto's cunning nature, will he deceive Momoshiki? Because in context, there has been no confirmation yet that Momoshiki will accept Boruto's offer or not. Regardless of the various assumptions circulating on the internet, you should definitely agree that it is normal and reasonable for Otsutsuki to devour their own race, right? Yeah, like Momoshiki and Kinshiki. However, the big question is, does Boruto have the physical capability to devour Otsutsuki, who has transformed into a chakra fruit? But if you doubt this, you should remember that Boruto is no longer a shinobi, right? Because basically, he is also an Otsutsuki himself, just like Momoshiki and the others. Also, it is a proven fact that it is common for Otsutsuki to devour their own comrades to become stronger or evolve. So how could this scenario happen even though it sounds wild and unreasonable? One possibility is that if Boruto fails to convince Momoshiki to agree to his plan to defeat Jura. But before you dismiss this as completely absurd, consider this, guys. Do you still remember the arc between Sasuke and Orochimaru? In this arc, Sasuke was supposed to give his body to Orochimaru as a promise he made from the start. But instead of handing over his body, Sasuke did something completely unexpected. He devoured Orochimaru and took over him. In other words, rather than giving his body to Orochimaru, Sasuke ended up absorbing him completely. And in conclusion, what happened to Sasuke and Orochimaru could very well happen to Boruto and Momoshiki. After all, for some reason, Boruto is actually similar to Sasuke himself when you look at their various similarities. Isn't that right? And I suspect that Ikemoto and Masashi created a scenario similar to that of Boruto and Sasuke. But what do you guys think? And actually, there are too many reasons to support this theory, especially as I said from the beginning. It's not just me, but we all seem to agree that Momoshiki will not end up being a solid friend like Kurama and Naruto. Because apart from the fact that Kurama and Momoshiki have different existences and goals, the natural nature of the Otsutsuki is more evil. So with the fact that Boruto will likely never become a friend, one ending that I think is perfect is Betrayal. Boruto will eliminate Momoshiki by devouring him, but it's also possible that the opposite will happen. That is, maybe Momoshiki will devour Boruto, not Boruto devouring Momoshiki. But what is certain is that some of the worst and most unreasonable possibilities could happen if Ikemoto really wants to end the cycle of the Boruto era like Eren Yeager, especially since Boruto is currently offering Momoshiki the chance to take over his body. Regardless of the outcome of this decision, that's just how it is. However, if you're wondering how Boruto would do that, at least I'm confident this method would work. First is with a karma inversion technique method. We know that normally, karma is Otsutsuki data that affects the host's body, right? But let's assume that if Boruto has truly mastered the Jougan, he will have a probability of accessing and locking Momoshiki's chakra core. Because surely, the power of the Jougan will be a natural counter to Momoshiki himself, as per the theory that is widely spread on the internet. But from that reason or method, for some reason, Boruto's experience is something that needs to be considered. I mean, after years of living with Momoshiki inside his body, Boruto has understood Momoshiki's nature, his power, and even his weaknesses. So, with his experience and the things Boruto has understood in detail about the core of his existence, this could also be the trigger for Boruto to find Momoshiki's weak point, like turning him into a chakra fruit, just like Momoshiki did to Kinshiki. But what do you guys think? So yeah, as a final conclusion, based on the reverse storyline of Naruto and Boruto, I suspect that Ikemoto will end the Boruto era by not doing what Masashi Kishimoto did, like with Kurama and Naruto. Then with their similarly cunning natures, Boruto and Momoshiki will surely do something the fandom would never expect. For example, this theory where Boruto turns Momoshiki into a chakra fruit and eats him. After that, Boruto will gain absolute power. On the other hand, if Boruto does the same thing Sasuke did to Orochimaru, instead of giving him his body, he takes full control of it, then this theory would also make a lot of sense. At the end of the day, Momoshiki has been living inside Boruto's body for a long time. It makes perfect sense that Boruto would find his weak point. Especially since Boruto is not a shinobi but an Otsutsuki, it makes perfect sense that he would do what the Otsutsuki race does, right? But what do you think? And again, it's okay if you think this is crazy and doesn't make sense, but my reference is still based on the reversed story of Boruto and Naruto. Boruto is not a shinobi, but an Otsutsuki. Also, Boruto is following in Sasuke's footsteps. However, if you have more reasonable reasons and theories as to why Boruto shouldn't devour Momoshiki, let me know in the comments. So yeah, thanks for watching, like and subscribe. I'm Nim without the E. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye, Data Bio.